Welcome, crypto fam, to the #1 daily Bitcoin pod. In today's show, I'll be breaking down the latest Bitcoin technical analysis, as well as breaking news. Jack Mallers' strike launches Bitcoin-backed loans. I'll be sharing the controversy behind this, as well as breaking news. Celsius's Mashinsky lashes out as a death in prison sentence, as the prosecutors are recommending a 20-year prison sentence. And as you know, he's already in his 50s, so pretty good chances he'd die in prison with that sentence. We'll also be discussing Florida takes strategic Bitcoin reserve bill off the table. Damn it, DeSantis. And I was anticipating Florida being one of the first states to adopt a Bitcoin strategic reserve. But the silver lining, breaking news, New Hampshire becomes the first U.S. state to pass the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. This is massive news on the day. I'll be breaking it down for you. We'll also be discussing Bitcoin price rallied 1,550%. The last time this Bitcoin risk-off metric fell this low. Also, Binance founder CZ says Bitcoin could hit between $500,000 and $1 million this cycle. I'll be breaking down his timeline. We'll also be taking a look at the overall crypto market. All this, plus so much more, in today's show. Let's kick it off. If you're new to the channel, important, smash the likes, go ahead, subscribe, then ring the bell. Turn on all notifications to receive daily premium crypto news alerts every single day, 7 days a week, including Taco Tuesdays, just like today. Today is pod episode 1984. We're 16 episodes away from the coveted 2,000. It's insane. Most consistent #1 daily Bitcoin pod, hands down. Today is May 6th. 2025. I'm your host, JV. Let's kick it off with our market watch. After a nice corrective weekend, we're finally back in the green. Pretty little bitty, maintaining above 95,000 at the time of the live stream, up roughly 1% on the day, while Ether, Solana, Sui, and XRP remain in the red because they're a part of the dark side. Just saying. Lord Vader, XRP are kind of one and the same. But I digress. Checking out CoinMarketCap.com. Current crypto market cap sits at a staggering $2.94 trillion. And to put that into perspective, the gold market cap is like 22 trillion. So we got a long ways to come before we ultimately off gold and teach Peter Schiffmeister a lesson once and for all. I think we'll get a final capitulation before you know it. But anyways, checking out top 100 crypto gainers past 24 hours. We got Monero, WorldCoin, and Tether Gold leading the pack as very modest gains on the day as the majority of the market is correcting and in the red. And let me check out the dominance for today. Bitcoin dominance is 64.1%. This is the highest it's been in several months. ETH dominance has been stagnant, currently 7.3%. And if you don't know, now you know. And checking out the infamous crypto bubbles. I'd say 80-20 red over green on the day. For the weekly, I'd say maybe 85-15 red over green. And for the month, literally 95% pumpage, only 5% in the red, and some of these massive gainers, including the meme coins like Fartcoin, Bonkers, there's a Virtual, a Pengu. I'm just going to assume they're all meme coins, but you guys let me know. And checking out the Crypto Greed Fear Index. Today we're at 59 greed, yesterday at 52, last week at 60, and last month at 34 in fear. And checking out the infamous time chain calendar. We have 154,458 blocks until the halving in 2028. TikTok next block, roughly every 10 minutes. And if you don't know, now you know. We're on block height number 895,542. And as of today, you can exchange one fiat monopoly dollar, which is controlled by the lizard folk, for 1,053 sats. Controlled by nobody. Bitcoin represents individual sovereignty, and Bitcoin provides individual property rights. So you know what to do. Pick up the sats, put down the gats, pick up some Bitcoin cats from my man Sergio over at bitcoincaps.net. Get yourself a custom President B exclusive, just like this. So yeah, let's break this baby down. Headline here reads, and I'll also pull up some of the live chart. Bitcoin risk sub 92 retest as the Bitcoin price fails to match the 4% gold gains. And Peter Schiffmeister is going wild. Here we're looking at a Bitcoin 1 hour chart. We had a little bit of a correction, obviously, over the weekend, but we're back above 95 G's, baby, at the time of the live stream. That's right. TradingView showed a bitty price momentum stalling at 95 before the latest daily close, inching closer to the key yearly open support level of 93.5 as Bitcoin appeared in a limbo while gold returned to outperform. That's right. Gold/USD was up 1.5% on the day. Wowzers, Peter Schiff. Look at those gains. Crypto Implied volumes remain suppressed, with front-end skew drifting back towards neutral and spot largely directionless. According to QCP Capital, they noted various swings across the macro spectrum, with the dollar staying lower in emerging market currencies, especially the Taiwanese dollar surging alongside gold, quoting them here. At the same time, the FX shakeup coincides with nearly a 3% surge in the gold on Monday, as investors lean into the weaker dollar narrative and price and geopolitical risks premia, including prospective U.S. trade diplomacy. And with Bitcoin yet to follow suit, QCP said, increasingly binary next phase, with one outcome being the Bitcoin decouples from gold safe haven bid and relinks with the broader risk proxies. And in his own analysis, the Kabisi letter shared in April, Bitcoin joined the gold run, increasing correlation for the first time in months. Between April 7th and the 21st, gold surged 15% alongside with 12% gains for the biddy. And the flight to decentralized and inflation-protected assets is strong. Keep watching this trend, and if you don't know, now you know. Meanwhile, the MACD gives the Bitcoin bulls a pause for thought. Evidence for this came from the moving average convergence divergence, known as the MACD indicator, a measure of trend strength that gave conflicting signals on longer and shorter time frames. Quoting Dave the Wave here, Bitcoin is consolidating between last week's high and low, awaiting tomorrow's FOMC meeting with Jay Powell. Meanwhile, the daily MACD is crossing bearish, signaling slower momentum. And if you don't know, now you know. One more quote from Material Indicators. While I am prepared for a wick to 88 to 90,000 range, I think 91.6 level around the 21 moving average is likely target of the week. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And let's next pull up some of the live charts, and then I actually have something very interesting regarding massive news from Strike. Jack Mallers' company just launched Bitcoin-backed loans, and I'm going to share with you Simon Dixon's perspective on that and what's really going on with the institutions right now. But first, as I promised, let's do some chart action Jackson for the broskies and the baddies. Now, you should be able to see on your screen, this is the 1 minute. I usually start from the 1 hour, so let's go start from there and work our way back. Looking at the 1 hour chart, familam, you can see there's a falling wedgie, two bull scenarios, one in the red sitting at 98,745, about a 4,000 climb from the current price action. We have another bull scenario in the green sitting at 97,000, and zooming out from the 1 hour, we'll take a look at the 4 hour. And as you can see, two nice green candles formed since this morning. So bullish momentum returning in the market on the 4 hour. We do have a bull scenario of 98.7 and then in the green at 97, very similar to the 1 hour chart. And zooming out a little further, we take a look at a daily. For the daily, thus far, we're forming a green. Yesterday was an itty-bitty green form candle, but the weekend was pretty bearish, hence the red candle closes. But we do have a bull scenario, which would retake us to price discovery, currently at 111, at least for this target on the chart. Current all-time high is 109.3. And then we have a bear scenario in the pink here, sitting at just shy of 69 G's, baby. And zooming out from there, we take a look at the weekly, and you can see we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 green consecutive weekly closes. Good sign considering the previous months were pretty red. And we do have a cup and handle target sitting at 124,000. Most likely, in my humble opinion, once we can re-enter price discovery, I think the next leg up is going to be in the 120 to 130 region, and that may be extremely accurate. That's been printed on this chart for quite some time as the bullish momentum returns here in Q2 after a pretty bearish Q1 after hitting the all-time high in January, of course. And zooming out on the monthly shows us thus far bullish for May, even though we're only 6 days in. 2 previous months were bearish, then before that we had some green, but hopefully this bullish momentum continues, because you got to keep in mind where we're at in the cycle. It's literally 12 months, 13 months after the halving. Typically, we hit a cycle peak between 12 to 18 months out, which would mean, if history is to rhyme or repeat, within the next 6 months, we can anticipate a massive bullish run-up that can melt faces. And if you don't know, Now you know. But I actually wanted to share with you something very interesting really quick regarding Jack Mallers is big news, and then we'll continue with our next story of the day. Jack Mallers announced it right here, announcing strike lending. You shouldn't have to sell the best performing asset in human history to access cash. Now you don't have to. Access your Bitcoin wealth without selling it. Build a better life on top of Bitcoin with strike. Borrow fiat. HODL Bitcoin, and in this video, he breaks down, the product. It's about a 17-minute video. Now, Simon Dixon responded, and I wanted to actually bring this to your attention. Are we really doing this again? Now ask Jack Mallers, where do the dollars really come from? My bet, Howard Lutnick, who gets them straight from the Fed to back stable coins long before the banks manufacture new mechanism to margin call your Bitcoin. The end game, push strategy into Chapter 11 after Wall Street unleashes another round of financial weapons of mass destruction backed by bankster bond investors. The banks want your Bitcoin, and they are recruiting their team to get them for you. Debt and leverage is how they get you. Let's continue. Alex Mashinsky, he was the Celsius founder. It was like a $6 billion fraud. And the prosecutors are shooting for 20 years in prison, which is ultimately a death sentence. So this is an interesting headline. Celsius Mashinsky lashes out at the death in prison sentence. Alex Mashinsky, and you can just look at him and tell he's shady. He's one of those types of characters. The founder and former CEO of bankrupt crypto lending platform Celsius has blasted the government's 20-year venom-laced sentence request, declaring it a death in prison sentence. Well, you shouldn't be doing these types of crimes in your 50s, you idiot. At least Bankman-Fried did the crime in his 20s, so he'll get out to see some fresh air one day, maybe. No did he? The U.S. Department of Justice requested Mashinsky receive at least 20 years behind bars in the May 8th sentencing for his role in misleading Celsius users and profiting from the price manipulation of Celsius, the Cell token, which would make the 59-year-old 79 if he serves the whole sentence. And you already know with the type of quality of food in prison, it's probably highly unlikely this man lives to 79, just saying. Lawyers acting for Mashinsky argued in a May 5th reply memorandum filed in New York District Court he should receive no more than 366 days, you freaking crazy, because the DOJ hasn't taken into account his status as a non-violent first-time offender. Bullshit. With previously unblemished 30-year history in business, to me, he was the most obvious fraudster. Going back, him and Bankman-Fried, I'd put them in the same category. If he gets anything less than 20 years, I'd be shocked. But to say he only deserves 366 days in prison for scamming our industry out of $6 billion, you know what I say to the defense attorney? Go fuck yourself. The government, venom, and I don't like to see people go to prison, but when they're this level of a scumbag, I'll tell you how I really feel. The government's venom-laced submission recast this case as one involving a predator with an intent to target victims, harm them, and steal their money. Couldn't agree more. It concludes by recommending that a first-time, not a violent offender who pled guilty and accepts responsibility receives a death in prison sentence. Well, it's only a death in prison sentence because the retard is 58 years old and committed a financial crime, and one of the biggest financial crimes of all time. That's why. It's not sentence life in prison. It's just you're an old man doing a crime and you got to pay the time. You know what I mean? Just saying. As part of the plea agreement, Mashinsky pleaded guilty December 2024 to commodities fraud, manipulating the price of sell, earning $48 million by selling his holdings before the Celsius collapse in June of 2022. Prosecutors initially filed 7 charges. This is back in July of 2023. Lawyers acting for Mashinsky alleged the DOJ's push for the 20-year sentence is because their client is unwilling to capitulate to the government's exaggerated characteristics of his actions, specifically that he was a fraud from the get-go. No, it was fucking crystal clear. I recognized him as a fraud from the first time I ever saw his ugly little face. And I just want to tell you how I feel. It couldn't be more obvious, so don't believe the hype. Alex is inserted as the scapegoat for every corporate action, every group decision, every unanimous vote, every market fluctuation, and every employee's water cooler speculation, whatever, lawyers. And as part of the April 28th sentence request, the DOJ said Mashinsky's guilty plea shows that his crimes were deliberate, 100%. Calculated, 100%. Decisions to lie, deceive, 100%. Teach them a lesson. Days earlier, April 23rd, U.S. federal prosecutors also filed statements from hundreds of victims who lost money due to this. And let me know if you lost money on Celsius. They detailed how some entrusted their life savings to the protocol, believing Mashinsky's assurances that it was safe. So he was just a con artist. Celsius filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy July 13, 2022, owing almost $5 billion to creditors after halting withdrawals in June, citing volatile market conditions. And then in November of 2023, U.S. Bankrupt Court approved Celsius restructuring plan to repay customers, with $2.5 billion paid to 251,000 creditors. Former Celsius Chief Revenue Officer Ronnie Pavin pleaded guilty September of 2023 to similar charges, but his December 11th sentencing has been delayed until after Mashinsky is sentenced. Well, there you have it. I want to know how many of you were impacted by the likes of Celsius. Let me know. And do you think he should serve 20 years in prison or just 366 days? As per his defense attorney, Florida takes strategic Bitcoin reserve bill off the table. That's right. 2 Florida crypto bills have been removed from the legislative process. The latest blow to the American state strategic level Bitcoin reserve ambitions, Florida House Bill 487, Senate Bill 550, have been identified indefinitely postponed and withdraw from consideration as of May 3rd, according to the Florida State Senate. Florida's legislative session adjourned May 2nd without the passage of the 2 bills, which would have advanced legislation to establish a crypto reserve for the state. The Senate and the House agreed to extend the session until June 6th to address the budget plans. Lawmakers passed about 230 bills during the session, dealing with things like prohibiting putting fluoride in the water. That's major. Fuck the fluoride in the water. Remove that shit. Protecting state parks. Yeah, you got to protect the parks. And a school smartphone ban. Interesting. But diversifying state treasury portfolios was not amongst them. And as you can see, Florida was making grounds, and now everything's just been ultimately canceled. HB 47 was first introduced in February, which would allow Florida's chief financial officer and the State Board of Administration to invest up to 10% of the certain state funds into the pretty little bitty going up forever Laura. SB 550 also filed in February to enable investments of the public funds into the bitty. Florida now dropped out of the race. Oh no. To pass state-level crypto investment legislation along with Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Montana, and Oklahoma, which have seen the Bitcoin bills fail to pass the House or Senate votes according to the Bitcoin laws. Now, Arizona has 2 more chances. It came after Arizona advanced strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation further than any other state until House Bill 1025 was vetoed by Satan's spawn, Governor Katie Hobbs, who labeled digital assets untested investments. In fact, I dare say her lizard folk handlers told her to veto the bill. The Digital Asset Strategic Reserve Bill would have permitted Arizona to invest these funds into Bitcoin and create a reserve managed by the state officials. The move drew the ire of crypto advocates and Bitcoiners, including entrepreneur Anthony Pompliano, who shared the following. Imagine the ignorance of a politician to believe they can make investment decisions. Arizona has 2 more chances to be the first in the nation to establish a Bitcoin reserve. Well, now it's officially over. They can no longer be the first in the nation. He added the most likely to pass the HB 2749, which offers a budget-neutral method to fund the reserve using profit from the unclaimed property fund. Now, there's also a related bill, which is SB 1373, which would authorize the state treasurer to allocate up to 10% of the Arizona state funds into digital assets. It has yet to reach the final vote. And there you have it. But yeah, here's the big news for New Hampshire. New Hampshire becomes the first U.S. state to pass the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. New Hampshire has made history as the first state in America to adopt the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill into law. Months after Representative Keith Ammann introduced the bill, it has now become law. The New Hampshire plan to gain exposure to Bitcoin is based on the model created by the Satoshi Action Fund. So shout out Dennis Porter, doing big things. According to the press release by Porter, the HB 302 bill is now law. It's official. The first of its kind in the United States, and under the new law, the state treasurer can now officially buy Bitcoin and other digital assets with market cap of at least 500 billion. So you run the math. How many crypto assets are there with a market cap of 500 billion or more? I think it's just Bitcoin. Notably, only Bitcoin fits the requirement. That's right. What a beautiful thing. The New Hampshire bill for the BITI was introduced in January and moved closer to adoption as the House assented in March. With the proposed law, the state can now hold up to 5% of its funds into digital currencies. Game on. This move complements the general trend here in the United States, where different regions are now contemplating whether to proceed with crypto reserves, sparking Bitcoin game theory. or another phrase coined by Max, he calls it the global hash war, as nations will be adopting Bitcoin so they don't get left behind. And it's obviously occurring already at a state level here in the States. You can see the big news here. Governor just signed the HB 302 into law. America is buying Bitcoin. History is being made. So shout out the governor, shout out all the officials involved in this. That's a great step in the right direction for our country. And a little more insightful here, Dennis Porter shared this info. He's actually the founder of the Satoshi Action Fund, and this is the official press release. New Hampshire becomes first state to pass Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Bill into law. Landmark win built on Satoshi Action's model policy establishes the blueprint for the rest of the nation. What exactly does this bill deliver? It lets the treasurer buy Bitcoin and other top-tier assets, but it must have a 500 billion market cap or above, which currently only Bitcoin's qualified for. So maybe in the future, some additional alts may fit the bill, maybe some stables. We'll find out. Caps holding at 5% of the total state funds ensures Bitcoin complements the state's broader investment strategy and mandates robust U.S. regulated custody. Of course, takes effect 60 days after passage, so a clear runway to activate the reserve and begin stacking the sats. Who should we celebrate for making this happen? Keith Amon, Majority Leader Jason Osborne, Ian Huet, and Governor Ioate. And I know I'm butchering some names here, but mad respect. And again, a step in the right direction. Love to see it. Only a matter of time for the rest of the states follow in this direction. Now the blueprint has been laid out, just like Bukele laid out the blueprint with Bitcoin country. Game on. All right, next story of the day, Famalam. Headline reads, Bitcoin price rallied 1,550% the last time the Bitcoin price risk-off metric, fell this low. That's right. Check it. May 5th, the Bitcoin risk-off signal, an indicator that uses on-chain and exchange data to assess correction risk, dropped to the lowest level for the first time, March 27th of 2019. So it's been 6 years. When Bitcoin was trading at $4,000. How many of you were around back then? Let me know. The signal is currently in the blue zone. You're my boy, blue, which historically suggests low correction risk and a high probability of a bullish trend. When the oscillator rises above a 60, it turns Darth Vader red, implying a higher risk of the bearish movement. That's right. And in 2019, the same signal preceded a staggering 1,550% rally that saw Bitcoin soar to a new all-time high. It was actually 69,000 November 10th of 2021. Data from CryptoQuant indicated the risk-off signal combined 6 metrics: downside and upside, volatility, exchange inflows, funding rates, futures open interest, market capitalization, collectivity. They provide a balanced view of the correction risks, making the signal a data-oriented gauge for the market trends. The last time the risk-off signal indicated the low-risk investment environment, Bitcoin was valued at only 4 Gs. Several factors can explain the price disparity. The launch of the Bitcoin ETFs in the U.S., which actually was January 11th. Just over a year ago, opened the floodgates to the institutional capital, boosting the demand and stabilizing the Bitcoin price. In fact, the ETFs and the public companies now hold 9% of the Bitcoin supply. That's pretty mind-boggling. Just Strategy B, which currently has like over 560,000 Bitcoin, and BlackRock has over 600,000. Collectively, they, just 2 companies, own more than Satoshi, 1.1 million. Crazy. Latest ETFs and public companies now hold 9% of the Bitcoin supply. Spot ETFs own 5.5% after just 1 year. Where do you think they'll be in the next 5 years? And companies like Strategy alone own 3.5% of the institutional adoption. This is mind-boggling, and it shows you here the ETFs and public companies collectively 9% holding of the total Bitcoin supply, and I think those numbers are only going to massively increase. Hence Simon Dixon blowing the whistle, like, stop giving your Bitcoin to these guys. You know, they're looking to take your Bitcoin, so hodl be thy name. Data from Fidelity showed Bitcoin's volatility decreased 3 to 4 times that of the equity index, down from triple-digit volatility in the early years, as illustrated in the following chart. Between digit volatility in the early years, 2019-2025, the 1-year annualized realized volatility dropped by more than 80%. This maturing market absorbs the capital inflows with less price disruption, thus growing mainstream adoption, regulatory clarity, and the Bitcoin increasing role as a hedge against the inflation have bolstered the value, setting a higher price floor compared to the infamous 2019. That's right. Meanwhile, the macro chain index is a composite of on-chain macroeconomic metrics, flashed a buy signal for the first time since 2022, when it accurately predicted the market bottom of 15.5. Historically, the MCI RSI crossover has preceded a massive rally, such as more than 500% surge back in 2019. Combined with rising futures open interest and favorable funding rates, the MCI suggests the biddy could break 100,000 over the coming week. I should say, or I dare say, they say within the coming few weeks. I say we can do that this week. I think we're going to continue with our bullish momentum, but you guys let me know your thoughts. An analyst by the name of Dark Faust pointed out the Bitcoin Network Activity Index had declined sharply, reflecting reduced transaction volume and fewer daily active addresses since December of 2024. The drop of the UTXOs further indicates a waning demand for the block space, a pattern often seen in the bear markets. However, the analyst explained this doesn't confirm a bearish outlook. Macro indicators remain strongly bullish, suggesting this lull could be a strategic entry point for the long-term investors, and I think that's precisely what it is. As the smart money, the institutions, the states, the sovereign wealth funds, the pension funds are all coming running for the pretty little bitty, like Deion Sanders in his prime. All right, now for our feature story of the day, fam. Binance founder CZ, Changpeng Zhao, says Bitcoin could hit 500,000 to 1 million per coin this cycle. Let's break it down. The latest prediction from CZ, the man, the myth, the legend himself. And I dare say one of the richest, if not the richest on paper in cryptocurrency, and the richest man to ever serve jail time. The one and only CZ. He expects Bitcoin's price to top at 500,000 to 1 million during this current market cycle. During a new interview with Rug Radio, he said that he expects Bitcoin to reach up to 1 million during this market cycle. He also highlighted the role of Bitcoin spot, Bitcoin ETFs in the rise, saying that the increasing institutionalization of the biddy is a good thing for the market. Quoting him here, there's the ETFs, there's the institutionalization of the biddy. It's a positive in the terms of the price action. Obviously, bruh, our bags are up. Not the altcoins as much, but at least the Bitcoin is. Can I get an amen? CZ explained that the ETFs are bringing the traditional institutional money into the crypto and most of the money in the U.S. institutional money. He also said the Bitcoin is going up because most of the ETFs are Bitcoin based. That's right. The institutions only want Bitcoin. There's really not much going on outside of it. Now, founder of research, Alex Ob something, said that 70% of the Bitcoin growth is new institutional capital. The rest is just a redistribution of the crypto assets. He highlighted the roles of the ETFs in pushing the Bitcoin price higher, as he shared here. The ETFs, especially the Bitcoin ETFs, are a key driver of the bullish trend, but with small, volatile corrections. The governments are in on it too. CZ highlighted the governments are increasingly buying Bitcoin as well, which is really good for the price action. It's also very good validation. It only took the United States, 16 years to adopt some Bitcoin, or at least pass their strategic reserve bill, the executive order, and hopefully they start their accumulation spree here sooner than later, or we get left behind. Trump, if you're listening. The remarks follow multiple countries accumulating the biddy. In late April, El Salvador, Bitcoin country, the world's first country to adopt the biddy as the legal tender, continue to acquire the biddy. That's right. In fact, they're purchasing at least 1 Bitcoin per day, despite the IMF FUD and claiming the opposite. Yes, Bukele took the $1.4 billion loan and said, yeah, I'm just going to continue to buy the biddy. Deal with it. The country has already acquired 7 Bitcoin worth $650,000 in the 7 days leading to April 27th. The country's Bitcoin office data shows El Salvador currently holds 6,170 Bitcoin worth almost $580 million. Also, we have the Kingdom of Bhutan accumulating Bitcoin. January report suggests a new economic hub of the country plans to set up the Crypto Strategic Reserve, comprising of major crypto assets, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. The former Binance CEO also noted the U.S. had pivoted 180 degrees under the pro-crypto president, Mr. Trumpinator. They are smart enough to recognize that buying the Bitcoin is a great move, and now the other countries will have to follow. That's the key there. Will have to. It's called follow the leader. And talking about the retail investors, he said they have 15 years to buy. Consequently, if they're late now, that was their choice. Well, here's the deal. We all pay for the biddy at the price we deserve. Now, just the other day, I published for the first time ever a 7-year prediction, including with dates and prices. This was shared on May 4th at 9:45 p.m. It got a lot of love, actually. 90 bookmarks, 317 hearts, and 38 reposts. And I wrote my Bitcoin prediction for the next 7 years. Bookmark this. May 4th, 2025. We all know it was 95,000. So for the next 7 years, here's my prediction. Next year, 420. 2027, 333. 2028, 1.1 million. 2029, 2.2 million. 2030, 3.6 million. 2031, 2.9 million. 2032, that's two halvings from now, 4.7 million. And I cut it off there. If I would continue going, I dare say 2033, 7+ million. But I cut it off because I don't want people to go crazy with my predictions. Just a little crazy. But let me know your thoughts. And yesterday I broke down my logic of how I came up with the numbers, which ultimately I use intuition. I don't use charts. I don't use analysis. I don't use any of the traditional ways these other analysts do it. I just use my insights. I use my intuition, and I pull the numbers out of my ass, but I stand by them. Let me know if you agree, disagree. I read your comments out loud. Welcome everyone to the Q&A segment of the live stream. And shout out Oracle. She just gifted 5 more memberships. Good Lord. That's a collective of 10 memberships gifted today by just our Oracle, the greatest to ever do it. And congratulations, Bobby Digital, Stat Stacker, Crypto Scarface, Canito Warrior, and Anonymous. You've all been hooked up with a MicroStrategy membership of the channel on behalf of our very own Oracle. So welcome all the new members. This gong strike is for you.